Richard Petty climbed out of a wrecked race car on February 24, 1961, relieved to be alive. Minutes later, he watched his father go through the same guardrail at the same corner. One of Petty's racing careers ended that afternoon. It wasn't the one anyone would have guessed. That's only one piece of this story, which also includes a hidden trick nobody talks about. A finish so controversial its own winner accused NASCAR's founder of rigging it, and a father who once filed an official protest against his own son. To understand any of it, you have to go back 12 years, to a man who almost quit racing before he'd really started. Lee Petty was 35 years old, in the summer of 1949 married, working as a mechanic and a truck driver. Not exactly the profile of a future racing legend. When NASCAR ran its very first race at the Charlotte Fairgrounds that June, Petty borrowed his neighbor's Buick Roadmaster to enter it, on the promise that whatever he won would cover any damage. He rolled the car 4 times. His young son, Richard, watched the whole thing from the infield. Most men would have taken that as a sign to quit. Petty took it as an introduction. He bought a Plymouth Light, underpowered, nothing special on paper, and started racing it properly. Almost nobody includes this part when they tell his story. Before NASCAR, Petty had been an occasional moonshine runner, and he brought that background straight into racing, according to Petty's own family. Lee would take his factory spec cars to a local service station and simply pull the mufflers off before racing them. In NASCAR's earliest era, cars were supposed to be exactly what came off the factory floor, and an open exhaust let the engine breathe more freely, adding real horsepower nobody else on the grid was extracting from an identical car. The same instinct that once kept him ahead of revenue agents aimed now at a checkered flag. Richard summed up his father's whole approach in one line. He used to take those little old Plymouths and just outthink people. He wasn't exaggerating. 3 championships, 1954, 1958, and 1959, NASCAR's first 3-time champion. And one thing he did that had nothing to do with cutting corners at all. In 1953, he installed the first roll bar ever used in NASCAR competition, years before anyone required it. His best season, 1959, opened with the finish that became the sport's founding legend and its first real controversy. The first ever Daytona 500. Petty, Johnny Beauchamp, and a third driver named Joe Weatherly came across the line so close together that officials, in the moment, couldn't call it. They declared Beauchamp the winner. Beauchamp drove to victory lane and celebrated. Petty refused to accept it. "I had Beauchamp by a good 2 feet," he said afterward. "In my own mind, I know I won." He stayed in Daytona for 3 straight days, while NASCAR combed through newsreel footage and photographs, trying to find the exact instant either car's nose crossed the line first. On the 3rd day, they reversed the call. Lee Petty had won the first Daytona 500. But there's a darker layer underneath that great sports moment. 40 years later, in a 1999 interview, Petty said flatly that he believed Bill France Sr., NASCAR's own founder, had known all along that Petty won, and had deliberately named Beauchamp the winner anyway, purely to manufacture controversy for his brand new track. France would have done anything, Petty said, to generate publicity for his racetracks. Whether that's true or not, it's what the man who actually won the race walked away believing that the very first finish in Daytona 500 history might have been staged for headlines, at his expense, by the one man running the entire sport. Petty's ruthlessness wasn't reserved for outsiders. It reached his own family too, though what actually motivated it turns out to be more complicated than it first looks. At a race in Lakewood, Atlanta, in June of 1959, Richard, driving for his father's own team, dueled Lee side by side for most of the afternoon, passed him with less than 10 laps to go, and crossed the line first. It looked like Richard's first career Cup win in his rookie season. Hours later, the results changed. Lee had filed an official protest, arguing Richard had actually been a lap down and been wrongly credited with an extra lap he hadn't earned backed up, in part, by his own wife Elizabeth's personal scorecard from the stands. NASCAR reviewed it and agreed. Richard was demoted to third. Lee was declared the winner instead of a race his own son had just beaten him in on the track. "He's my boy, and I'd love to see him win a race," Lee told the Atlanta Constitution that night, "but when he wins one, I want him to earn it." Here's what that quote leaves out. NASCAR was offering bonus money that night, specifically for a current year model car, and Lee's Plymouth was a 1959 model. Richard's Oldsmobile wasn't. The difference in prize money between Richard winning and Lee winning was real money, at a time the Petties badly needed it. Richard himself, decades later, seemed to understand exactly what had actually happened. "Second was the best I'd ever run, so I was tickled," he said. Then somebody came over and said Daddy had protested. He explained that we'd make more money with him winning. Maybe it really was a father teaching his son to earn a win instead of taking one. Maybe it was $200 the family genuinely needed. Both things could be true at once, and Petty never fully separated the two, telling reporters flatly, "I would have protested my mother if I needed to." 2 years after that first Daytona 500, at the same track, the same two rivals collided again, and this time, nobody would need 3 days to understand what had happened. February 24th, 1961, the twin qualifying races set the field for that year's Daytona 500. Richard ran in the first one. A car ahead of him lost control, and Richard's own car sailed over the wall. He walked away largely unhurt, still catching his breath in the infield care center, when word reached him about the second race. His father was in that one. Late in the race, driver Banjo Matthews spun out directly in front of the field. Johnny Beauchamp, the same man Lee had outdueled at the finish line 2 years earlier, lost control avoiding it and clipped the back of Petty's car. Both cars went through the turn 4 guardrail together. The banking there is steep enough that a car leaving the track doesn't just crash, it flies. Petty's and Beauchamp's cars sailed roughly 20 feet through the air before landing outside the speedway entirely, in the parking lot. Petty's car struck a spectator on the way down, a man named A.B. Kelly, cut up badly, who still managed to help pull Petty from the wreckage before anyone official even arrived. Richard got there and found his father barely alive. The injuries were severe enough that doctors were fighting to keep him, not just treat him. A punctured lung, multiple fractures, internal bleeding serious enough that the track's own announcer made a direct appeal over the loudspeakers. "Anyone in the crowd who shared Lee Petty's blood type, please come forward." A fan named Harold Smith, who'd driven down from Illinois just to watch Daytona's speed weeks, had the right blood type. He gave it. He kept the donation receipt in his wallet for the rest of his life, until he died in 2010, and by his own family's account, they became Petty fans from that day forward. Lee Petty spent 4 months in that hospital. Johnny Beauchamp walked away with head and back injuries, and it was his last NASCAR race too. The same rivalry ending both men's careers in the same instant. Petty's name stayed on entry sheets after that, technically through 1964. But the driver who outthought the field in an underpowered Plymouth, who fought for 3 days to win the first Daytona 500, who'd protest his own son if the rules called for it, that career ended in a Daytona parking lot in February of 1961, at 46 years old. 54 career wins. For years, that stood as NASCAR's record. The only driver who ever broke it was his own son. Richard Petty went on to win 200 races and 7 championships, becoming the king, one of the most recognized names in American sports, let alone motorsport. Underneath all of it sits the man who taught him how to do this in the first place, whose own record his son erased simply by having a career 3 times longer than the crash allowed his father. Lee Petty founded Petty Enterprises with Richard and his other son Maurice, the operation that became NASCAR's most successful racing team in history and was eventually enshrined in every Hall of Fame the sport has. He died at 4:50 in the morning on April 5, 2000, in Greensboro, North Carolina, following surgery for a torn blood vessel near his stomach. He was 3 weeks past his 86th birthday. Here's the detail that should stop you cold. Lee Petty died just 3 days after his own great-grandson, Adam Petty, made his Winston Cup Series debut, the 4th generation of the family Lee had started with a borrowed, rolled Buick in 1949. Adam would be killed 5 weeks later, at 19 years old, in a practice crash. Lee Petty never lived to see what that dynasty would eventually cost the family that built it. He only lived long enough to see it begin its fourth generation, and then, 3 days later, he was gone. A borrowed Buick rolled 4 times, with an 11-year-old watching from the infield. A guardrail at Daytona, 12 years later, with that same boy now grown and standing on the other side of it. A great-grandson's first race, and 3 days after that, silence. That's the whole story. Start to finish. In 3 images. Everything else is just what happened in between.